Let's end the show with Bitcoin down almost 9% in just the last week. It's now stuck in the mid 7,000s. Our next guest says there are a few key levels to watch before another bounce can happen. Robert Sluymer is the head of technical strategy at Fundstrat. He joins us now. Robert, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So someone described this to me in a conversation as, and I'll see if you get the reference, a dog with fleas. Tell me why it's not.
That's probably a very accurate description, actually. It's a very difficult thing to be trading. Our view is that we're really at a moment of truth right here, which is what we titled our note yesterday. If we just rewind, if we take a look at the daily chart, which is obviously very volatile, takes us back to the fourth quarter of last year, and a tremendous moves here. But the short-term trends in this huge trading range that we've been in really do matter, these multi-week moves. And one of the ways that we gauge that trend, and it's just a very simple indicator, but we use the 15-day moving average. And we can debate whether that's the right one or the wrong one, but what we've seen as we move through that period of the May-June correction is ultimately Bitcoin bottoms around that $6,000 level, and ultimately that 15-day moving average turns up. So going into the middle of last week, we published a note just arguing that after that move that we had from 6,000 to call it 8,500, there was a pullback setting up. That RSI, the daily RSI in the bottom panel of the daily chart, was overbought, and we should see a pullback. We've gotten that. So right here, right now, I think that Bitcoin's at a very critical stage, because if that uptrend is going to continue, it needs to dig in right here. We've seen a retracement, about a 38% retracement. It's just slightly below the 15-day, and it's right at that 74, 75 support level, which is what we saw at the beginning of June and again in mid-July. So it's at very key support levels. And if we look at the intraday chart, the 4-hour chart, the RSI, the very short-term indicators for traders, is now very oversold. So I look at it right here thinking this is where it's got to stick. This is where you can put the long trade on, but it has to be done with very tight stops. Because if Bitcoin cannot dig in here, then that short-term trend defined by the 15-day moving average begins to roll over. And I think it's vulnerable to a collapse all the way back into that 6,000 range.
And you bring up a great point, right? Bitcoin hasn't been trading as long as some of the other products in the futures market. We're just approaching that year mark. I know the technicals that you're looking at right now suggest that we could have this bounce, but how do you know it can't go lower?
Well, you never know. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about technical analysis, is that it helps you gauge your risk. What's my risk reward from these levels? When do I know that that trade is going wrong? And the truth is, I think that anybody that's being honest about how they use technicals, it's just a way of gauging risk-reward, stop-loss positions. And I think down at these levels on Bitcoin, if you're trading, you can trade long. You got a very tight stop. Call it 7,400. If you really want to tighten it up, it's 7,455. Those are pretty reasonable risk rewards in terms of exposing capital. And from here, I think we get a bounce. I think we're going to try to challenge, get through that 7,800 level, possibly challenge at 8,500.
For one sec, I have a question about the philosophical trading, something that's at this stage of price discovery. Do you think, because the fundamental argument doesn't really change, it's just, we don't even really know what Bitcoin is. Do you believe the technicals are all we really trade on now? The only real way to trade it is to gauge short and medium-term market sentiment. Are you more looking at technicals on this than you would on other assets?
Well, I'm really biased. I'm a technician, so I think that it is a purely technical asset class. And in fact, another technician brought up a really good point, which is I don't think there's any other asset class that trades almost only by technicals. So it's kind of a funny situation where normally you have fundamental players involved. Bitcoin almost could be self-fulfilling or become somewhat convoluted in that it's almost purely technical traders involved.
Hey traders, did you like that video? There's more where that came from. Scroll down and click on the links to the right of your screen. We publish new videos and trade updates from our experts every day. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter @CNBC Futures Now.